Just a quick couple of notes while we begin. Uh, I will have a couple of interactive aspects during the session, and all you'll need to do is just scan a QR and keep a link open in your browser, if that's all right. Would that be cool? Thank you. And we'll try and engage wherever we can, just interact if possible, um, because this little talk, we're trying to introduce a new project that is coming under the Linux Foundation, which will get launched at the end of this month at Open Source Summit Europe. So I'm really excited to see you all here. Just while we get off, I am Aditya. I work full-time as a developer advocate at AppWrite. I'm also a steering committee member at the Developer Relations Foundation. And if anyone wants to connect with me afterwards, my Twitter is right up here. Now, just because I mentioned that we've got these interactive aspects, if someone wants to directly engage with a couple of the polls, ask any questions just well in advance while the talk is going on, it would be lovely if you can open up this link in your browser. It's just a quick little QR scan, and I will give this 30 seconds if that's okay, in case someone wants to. By the way, just while we're at that, how many people here have heard of the term developer relations or DevRel? Awesome. Do you want to share what you think it means? That'll be the first poll that's active on Slido right now. See, one person typing. It is developer relations. Well, that is accurate, but I do mean more so what it means beyond the phrase itself. HR, okay, interesting. HR is not one that I've heard in the past. Few more people typing. Okay, engineering, writing, advocacy, tech, human relations for developers. That's a really good description, by the way. I don't know who put that in, but very nice. I like that one. I see if, okay, lots and lots and lots. Thank you so much, everyone, by the way. Empathy, I think that's definitely my favorite. Saints, sometimes, not always, but we try to be. Heart, definitely is something that I agree with. Okay, I think we have a good number of these. Writing code samples, that's something we do as well. So just, as we talk about the definition of what DevRel really is, developer relations or DevRel is the practice of building and nurturing relationships with external and internal teams through community engagement, technical support, education, and advocacy to enable the successful adoption of an organization's developer products and drive business value. Sounds complex. In simpler words, what it basically means is that we spend our days, all of our time in and out, ensuring that anyone who wants to build with our products has the means, the resources, and the space to do so. If they like what they're building with, they have the ability to share that with us. If they don't, they have a voice in helping improve these. And we don't just do these outside our companies, we do these internally as well. Like, for example, tomorrow, if my marketing team comes up with any thoughts that they've come up or that they've discovered on our social channels, for example, I help make sure that I translate this feedback to our engineering team, collaborate with them to understand what space may need help. Sometimes this is a task that we take upon ourselves as well. Like if our community has been demanding for a certain integration, sometimes it's just DevRel that takes that up. So we are really investing all of our time taking care of our developers, ensuring that they can build with our products. Quick poll while we're at it. Does your company invest in a developer relations function? Do they have DevRel teams, employees? Do they have any activities that pertain to this role as well? Whether that is education, whether that is advocacy, whether that is support. A lot of times, support-related functions can become a part of DevRel as well. I see a few of you do, which is definitely great to hear. With that said, by the way, DevRel has a big problem today. At a larger industry level, there's one problem that we are constantly facing in developer relations, and that is that DevRel as a profession has been at risk for a little while. The fact is that developer relations professionals reduce friction in the self-service journey of a developer. They help accelerate adoption, they connect product to user value, and yet at the same time, they are constantly misunderstood, siloed, left out of key conversations around our products and our businesses. Companies still view DevRel as just support or just PR instead of more so a product-aligned growth engine. And this is a consequence of how leadership has seen DevRel historically, right? We end up, we'll be embedded in product, we'll be embedded in marketing teams, we'll be involved in the support conversations, but we don't end up getting recognized as strategic. We end up getting cut when budgets go lean, companies run short on money. And of course, with the AI boom, with a lot more tasks around growth, around support, getting automated, we're seeing, or rather, we are seeing a reduced need from leadership across tech companies and so on. And in our opinion, this is because we have we have some level of difference in how leadership views us versus what we actually do. The way leadership views DevRel often just accounts to a few different points, where when you talk about DevRel to leadership, they hear blog posts, webinars, docs. They may hear how many GitHub issues are getting closed in your SDK's public repository. They may hear Discord questions or forum questions being answered. Maybe it's developer engagement in onboarding flows. And, well, AI tools answering questions, right? As we've seen now with the number of docs, chatbots, and Discord servers for different developer product communities. Here's the thing, though. As DevRel, when we say blog posts or when we say docs, we are really talking about user education through lifecycle aligned content. When we talk about GitHub issues being closed, we forget that this also accounts for capturing product friction and surfacing the feedback that the product is receiving to engineering stakeholders. When we think Discord questions and forum replies, we forget that this is about building trust with the community, about shaping product strategy through user empathy. When we talk about dev engagement and onboarding flows, we forget that it refers to identifying adoption blockers and so on, right? Even with AI tools that, answering common questions, all of that content, all of that data and that documentation is being improved and created by DevRel teams all around. And then we do more. We're evangelizing these products internally as well. So teams beyond engineering have a better sense of understanding and clarity about what our products are. We're building communities, advocates, and relationships that drive better product retention within our consumers. We're constantly focusing on how our business goals connect with our developer community's sentiment and with the market as it continually evolves. And a lot of this work is often not advocated for enough. It's not spoken about. It becomes very invisible in the view of stakeholders who actually make decisions around DevRel at times. With AI, of course, we've ended up seeing a whole new set of challenges as well, where we're seeing a lot of leaders trying to replace DevRel work with AI. But in our opinion, that's not going to happen. It's not necessarily possible because think of it this way. Does anyone here use Twitter? If you can just raise your hand. Has anyone ever seen an AI bot reply to a person when they've shared their feedback? Whether it is an airline, whether it is a tech product, whether it's a random anon account doing so. When was the last time you actually liked a response like that? It's almost never. And that is because while AI can answer the how-to people, AI doesn't build trust. It is inorganic. It's often inauthentic. It may be accurate, but it can't build empathy. It can't build trust. It doesn't replace feedback loops, right? That is something DevRel does. We're building these we're building these human connections, we're shaping our documentation, we're closing feedback loops. We represent the human side of product-led growth. At the end of the day, for any developer org to succeed, we have to accept that human connection is what leads to long-term retention and growth. Our developers stick with us because they appreciate us, because they like us. Yes, we have to account for the objective factors, right? The quality of the product, the performance, all of that is going to matter. Objective factors will count in, but beyond that, once we get into the subjective, human connection is a massive, massive aspect of this conversation. And coming to this whole problem, right, about how DevRel is viewed, how leadership perceives it, how AI has brought its challenges, keeping all of these problems in mind is where the Developer Relations Foundation has come into the picture. Now, the Developer Relations Foundation, or the DRF, this was announced with its intent to form in 2024, and we started activities at the late end of last year. All activities of this foundation are entirely open source and community-led. Our mission is to elevate the professional practice of developer relations and increase awareness of it as a driver of business value. And we're going to have 4 major focus areas over at least the next coming year or two, which include career growth within developer relations, trying to at least accumulate metrics that are treated as important for DevRel, community and resources, as well as figuring out org structure. One very important thing that I do want to mention here is that the DRF is not just an advocacy group. It exists to create practical tools, frameworks, and a shared language for DevRel leaders and organizations. It's about building these systems around DevRel, not just fixing the problems that exist in this space today. And through our working groups and Global Voices, we're trying to develop the guidance that will help businesses scale DevRel in a right, in a correct, in a healthy manner. The foundation was very much born out of community conversations during the pandemic as a response to fragmentation, layoffs, and this need for unified direction that we've now come across in the industry today. By the way, considering that the foundation's intent to form was announced last year, I do have a question. How many of you are hearing about the DRF for the first time today? Do you want to join the poll? I'm glad you raised your hands, by the way. I really appreciate that. But it's always nice when people kind of hop into that. Ooh. More people have heard about this before. Okay, we're kind of balanced now. Interesting, interesting. Good to see. By the way, just while we're doing this poll, in case anyone does have any questions, I do want to keep things, just within time limits. So there is a QA section on Slido, and if you have any questions while we're discussing this, just throw them up. I'll have those questions live on screen the moment we kind of get close to conclusion. So do use the Q&A feature in there. Now, the purpose of having a foundation here for the DRF is to create an impartial community-driven entity that can provide resources, support, and governance for the DevRel community. Because we've seen initiatives like this in the past. We've seen different communities like the DevRel Collective. We've always had the DevRelCon events. There have been large-scale attempts at large-scale efforts, at least, in the last 5 to 10 years. The big benefit here, at least, to have a foundation instead of simply another independent community is that, well, as a foundation, we're able to extend access to support and resources to all individuals regardless of their job titles and organizations and roles. Simply because DevRel has been so fragmented across communities and companies that there has never been a central authority or resource to unify these efforts, just first of all. So we are trying to, well, be inclusive of everyone who does the job, whether they have the title or not, and trying to create a space for all of them to join in. The second thing, because the foundation is a neutral entity, because it's managed by the community, for the community, it's not necessarily driven by a single company's perspective. We're able to definitely remain impartial and focus on a direction that the community finds value in at a larger level, right? This isn't necessarily just to cater to a specific vendor's interests. It really does try to account for the overall larger global community, no matter what context a certain individual comes from. The third big aspect here, as far as the purpose of having this foundation goes, is that because governance is going to be managed by a public charter, a steering committee and working groups, the foundation can continue to operate and evolve over time, even as individual contributors come and go. So this doesn't become dependent on just one person, right? It becomes a larger, living, breathing sort of an organism of its own. By the way, just for any individual who's now taking some level of interest in the foundation, there are some personal and professional benefits that we intend to enable and extend for everyone as well. For anyone who joins as a member of the DRF, the idea is that as we try to create a unified voice within developer relations, we will attempt at defining practices, standards, address common challenges, create best-in-practice resources, and ideally this will allow organizations and individuals to come together as we make decisions for DevRel as an industry going forward. So the foundation will aim here to become a trusted, credible, and expert resource, right? Similar to professional bodies in other domains. Like, for example, India and IT has, of course, had entities like the NASSCOM and so on. The community industry, something that I've worked in the past, has CMX as its entity. Security has had CompTIA. The DevRel Foundation, the DRF here, will attempt to become this sort of an expert body and resource. And it will ensure to provide training, continued education, advocacy as time progresses. The second big benefit that a member who would join would receive is that they gain a larger visibility within the DevRel community. And this, of course, has a number of benefits which may be implicit, right? Like, for example, a community where you are with other fellow professionals of this domain would mean easier networking on a professional level and a personal one. It will enable access to opportunities that can help, of course, from a career front as well as an individual front. It will also allow for easier access to guidance and mentorship within the space, right? Because developer relations, even though it's been around for decades now, the first instances of DevRel actually came up in 1983 or 84 with Guy Kawasaki starting Apple's evangelism initiatives, and then we then saw a follow-up with Microsoft's technical evangelist group. But even with that, it is still a very niche domain compared to, let's say, software engineering. Creating this access is going to be beneficial for a lot of individuals. And thirdly, of course, practical resources. The DRF will intend to create exclusive resources, workshops, knowledge-sharing sessions with a priority to real-world case studies, pragmatic tools that we're using, and knowledge that will actually help you operate and function within your teams and your organizations and create a larger impact on your business. So, how can you help? Or rather, how can you join at this point of time? For the foundation, at least, while it gets ready for a much larger launch at Open Source Summit Europe, the first big thing that anyone can do here, if you want to become a part of the DRF, is join our Discord community. The Foundation's Discord is our primary synchronous communication channel for community participants, and this is where you're joined to chat with other individuals, connect with them, ask questions, share what you're working on, and stay updated on activities. By the way, in case you're not able to get the QR right now, the slides are available on Sched, which is where you have access to schedules. So I'm going to keep this up for 30 seconds, but you can take a look at it whenever you want to. Sorry? The link is not working. Okay, I'll take a look at that. Interesting. I don't know. I've been testing it for the last few days. Apparently, it's been working for me, but I'll help you access it later on. Step 2 is to sign up for the DRF mailing lists. The mailing lists are going to be our asynchronous communication channel. This is where we share larger updates, announcements, discussions regarding the foundation's activities. We will also have separate mailing lists for every working group within the foundation. So for any project updates and any calendar invites that happen for working group sessions, the mailing lists are what will be used. And thirdly, we have the DRF's GitHub organization. This is where all of our open source projects, all of our content, our proof of work will be available. So you can always take a look at the GitHub organization, start any projects you think are helpful, and keep a close eye. Keeping this up for another 15, 20 seconds. Oh, wait, sorry. Yeah. Here's the thing about DevRel. To the community, we will always represent the company that we stand for. To the company, we represent and we advocate for our communities. This is a philosophy that has defined DevRel from its earliest days, and it is time that we lead with it. The DRF has been built by and for DevRel professionals here. So it's high time we stop waiting for validation and start defining what we stand for, what this practice has been, and take a shared step to actually standardizing and defining what developer relations does and what business impact it has. If you want to make a difference in this movement, of course, we need you to raise your voices as well. So time for all of us to kind of come together and raise this bar for all of us, both for everyone here today and for everyone who's going to be a part of DevRel tomorrow. With that, I am going to lead into Q&A. And I see we have a few questions. So I'm going to start with all the questions we've got on screen just for now. First question I see is if we can expect a DevRelCon in Bangalore this year or next, and what are my thoughts on Ram's talk about it being a first role. Just for context, for anyone who didn't attend, Ram joined DevRelCon last year in Bangalore, which was the first ever Indian DevRelCon, and shared his talk about whether developer relations should be a first role or not. Can you expect a DevRelCon this year or next? I don't want to make any promises, but hopefully yes. Not this year, probably next year, but we are hoping to bring it back. We did enjoy it quite a lot, and we want to make it happen. It's just with work and with how everything's been around us, we've had a few challenges, but we do want to bring it back. And as far as Ram's content goes, I do agree that I think more than DevRel being the first role, I agree that it shouldn't be someone's first responsibility. And my perspective on that comes from my experiences as an advocate, where I believe that to support developers, you have to be in their shoes first. Unless you can walk their shoes, you can't necessarily have or build a sense of empathy, right? So if you're in a position where you can walk their shoes, you're good to go. And that will require a different set of responsibilities before, as a builder, as a developer, right? With that said, I was able to build and launch my career in DevRel with a number of alternative experiences through the open source world, through the hackathon space, through some amount of building on my own, getting projects out there. I think it's possible, but you will have an uphill climb for sure if you take that challenge up. The second question is that DevRel is considered a cost center and how to change that perspective, right? This is exactly the kind of problem that the DRF is trying to solve, right? Where if we aren't able to quantify our own value to our businesses, we're going to have a problem, right? So I think it's a good opportunity for us to redefine some of our metrics, and the DRF is actually taking some efforts on that front. I will recommend looking at the GitHub organization, because we have a working group specifically for that, which has started putting in efforts to bring these resources together. My own perspectives on that, of course, will be contextual. But I think it comes down to defining what your team does and figuring out how that impacts your onboarding journeys, your customer development, your consumer retention. And I think that is doable. It's just a lot of us don't start from the principle of solving a problem. I think a lot of teams have, unfortunately, in the market today started with the perspective of creating the team before they have a problem, right? And so I would say if you're in that position, take a step back, evaluate what problems you are actually solving, or the problems you need to solve. Start from there, right? Have a real business reason first. That's what you've got to go back to. Third question that I see, can a passionate software engineer in their day job call themselves a DevRel for being active in the OSS community? So here's my question to you, right? It's one thing to be active and to be engaging. Then, once you start, and I remember this from, I think, the first talk where Nitya in the keynote shared about how you grow from a passive user to being an educated user to being an active user, right? I think most of us, when we engage in our communities, engage as passive users. We're there, we might react to someone, but there is a lot more effort that goes beyond that, right? Where it's one thing when you just start with that. Then, you kind of grow on to engage with the product directly as a builder, as someone who's learning, as someone who's maybe exploring that documentation, and you educate yourself through these efforts. And then you kind of reach a point where you start becoming an active user, where and these are my definitions and my perception of these words, by the way, where you're supporting people who are building with it. Tomorrow you're out there helping solve a question, or you go out and advocate for it publicly, or you write a blog on how to build with it. The moment you are actively participating this way, I think you can call yourself an advocate, which is a very fair usage of the term. I mean, if someone in my community is going out there creating YouTube videos on how to build with AppWrite, or writing blogs on problems they faced and how they solved them, this is advocacy, this is education. So yeah, that's a fair title. With that said, of course, whether you do it for a living or not is a different matter, but it doesn't change the fact that you are doing things that I'd be doing in my day job. Then I see a new question. Wait, isn't manager today acting as a DevRel in organization? Not necessarily. There's a difference between coordination and advocacy or education or support. And a manager could be doing it, but it doesn't mean they definitely are. So I'd of course take a little bit of nuance there and really look at what they're doing, because this isn't to say that coordination isn't important, right? It just doesn't have to mean that it's DevRel. I don't see more questions here, but I'd be happy to catch up in a minute with anyone who wants to ask more about this. So yeah, with that, I think I'll conclude. Thank you so much to everyone who joined me, stayed around. It was my privilege to be on this stage, and I definitely look forward to interacting with you folks in the foundation. Thank you.